Thank you, Colin. As you're probably aware, that ministerial exemption from the Freedom of Information Act already exists, and this is an extension of that exemption. There are times when government needs to make decisions which should not be the subject of review by the courts. That's what government is there for. But you need confidence that the government is acting in an honest fashion. That's why you have somebody which can investigate whether or not there is corruption within government. But to answer directly Colin's question, I can't give it a yes or no, because there will be times when there will be that requirement. The pulp mill bill was clearly one when there was not. That was purely a political device that was put in to the detriment of all of us. So I'm sorry to be equivocal, but it would depend upon the circumstances.
Thank you, James. Richard, please.
Yes, the fast-tracking legislation through the Parliament with respect to the pulp mill was an absolute abominable decision, and it should never have happened. The simple fact of the matter is that the government of the day made a decision that it believed was politically appropriate and did pursue it, and we know what the result is today. And it has split the community, and it is the wrong decision, and it should never have happened. That basically has moved on, and unfortunately the decision has been made. The other point about it is that we are lucky that we do have the RPDC in place, and even though that doesn't necessarily go to the point that you're making about this process, it does provide a check and balance in place, and I am very supportive of the RPDC. I think it has a role to play, and I think it has performed that role admirably with respect to the Rouse Bay proposal. There needs to be, I think, some protection from with respect to ministers being able to undertake their roles and responsibility, and there is, of course, the appropriate protection within the Parliament which allows that to happen. Unless there is some higher authority within the system to change that, then I can't see it happening. Any changes in the short term, it may be that we would have to have a very strong contingent within the Legislative Council to recommend changes. But then again, if that is still split with a strong Labor component or Liberal component or Green component, if that ever happens, then I think then you're going to have some difficulty in pursuing that. So I'm sorry I can't give you a direct answer. I just find that it's something that perhaps we need further to look at, more investigation, and I think we need to at least have some protection for the executive, and that may mean that we have to allow some changes when that may be able to occur, but I can't give anything direct.
Thank you, Richard. Sharon?
At this point of time, I do not have enough knowledge nor information to make any comments, so I'll give it a pass.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Peter?
Open government, that's what we want. If there's a decision made, nothing should be able to stop it. That is my answer. We should not. This is the people of the power, and that's the power of the people, and that's what should happen. If the people want a decision and government pass a decision, it should not be able to be stopped. I was against the fast track legislation for the pulp mill. That should not have happened. So if we can do something about it, we should give the power back to the people.
Thank you, Peter. Wendy?
I believe that all actions should be reviewable by the courts, and just having the review mechanism in place will ensure that appropriate actions take place, and therefore I would support your proposal, Colin, that there be no clauses as you've mentioned.
John?
Thank you, Mark. I'm not sure on this one, to be perfectly honest. I think at some stages, it may be appropriate. I'm a bit like Richard here. I cannot give a decisive answer because I think at times it probably does need to be there. Other times a bit like Peter. I think where we can be open as much as possible, we should be open as much as possible. But I think there's got to be that bit of leeway where at times that a clause would be appropriate.
Thank you, John. We'll take another question from the from our public gallery, please. There's a right there.
Want me to take cover?
Oh no, I think we can reach you.
That's okay. He's coming and get to lean. You can lean anyway. I've got to lean. Because I'm halfway down the bottle. And I'm not a drinker. But I'm not happy Jan either. I'm not happy that Alison Richard resigned. As a community activist, I worked with Alison with the Ralph's Bay, and I'm not happy that the state government put in legislation to take the conservation status off Ralph's Bay for it to be conveniently put back on after they decide there's a planning scheme in place to suit a development. I'm not happy, and I said it at the RPDC hearings, that the hypocrisy of the state government in I turned it off. The state government has legislation that enforces councils to publicly advertise public land for sale. That process involves advising adjacent landowners, advertising in the paper, hearings at the council. It then goes on the agenda. The agenda is a public document. All of the aldermen look at it. All of the aldermen vote on it. The decision is there in the public for anybody to have a go at. The RPDC hearings that Richard and myself both attended, I do not think were run like other hearings that we've had for amendments to planning schemes, for instance. It was run very much like a court. The general public were not allowed to sit at the table. The general public did not participate in the hearing itself with questions and answers of any of the expert witnesses. I'm a not happy Jan when people get elected and you cannot get in the door to see them. I'm not happy about the fact that when we have our federal and state legislative councillors not working with the local aldermen within the broad planning strategies, and they can be simple little things like dog
Could I just
legislation.
ask, and I appreciate you're not happy.
Well, all
Is
the
there a
people
question
here
through the
tonight
questions?
have
That's all.
talked about consultation.
Yep.
How, as an elected member in Pembroke, are we going to be assured that we will have consultation with the state government with our planning schemes? Because I fear they are going to take planning schemes away from councils. How are we going to make sure that community consultation continues to occur when they get in the door and got a minder pushing it the other way?
Thank you, Kate. James.
Thanks. Well, I think I can speak for all of us that we wouldn't be here if we didn't believe in consultation. That's the first thing. Well, there are a couple who aren't here, so you can draw your own conclusions from that. But secondly, what happens when somebody gets in there and they're faced with the implementation of a specific decision about a specific development? It's the wrong question. You don't want to have palm tree justice. You don't want to decide things on an ad hoc basis. You need a planning scheme. You need a planning scheme which is fairly administered. So firstly, the community's got to agree on the planning scheme, and they do that through the various forums that you've already discussed. And then secondly, any hearings under that planning scheme are open, transparent, and abide by just natural fairness. So that's all I can say, if that understands your question. Or was there a specific part of your question?
I was just not happy.
There are lots of things that we're sometimes not happy with, but if we change the process to suit so it's applicable to all things, that's what we want to do. We don't want to pick individual decisions. That's not what Parliament's about. That's what other things do.
But the state government changes the process to suit their own legislation.
Well, that was clearly wrong. It was a political decision. You said it yourself.